however much the average Pensacola'n is spending on housing, however much of their budget it takes up today, it'll be more in the future if you don't have a plan.
Shane Phillips is one of the nation's leading experts on housing affordability. That's one of the hottest topics everywhere in America, usually as a major stress point.
In a weird way, a good time to work on it, but it's also super frustrating and depressing at times too. I go back and forth between optimism that like, look at all the stuff we're doing, but also pessimism that it still is getting worse. We still have a lot more to do.
Phillips, who has written an influential book and manages a Center for Housing Policy Study at UCLA, brought his knowledge to Pensacola for a pair of highly attended CivicCon presentations. His advice is to be proactive and centers around the 3 S's of supply, stability, and subsidy: building enough housing, enacting protections for tenants, and efficiently using public funds to help people afford housing.
I prefer that you think of supply, stability, and subsidy as a sort of 3-legged stool for affordable communities. Something that's sturdy and resilient when all the legs are in place, but if you remove any one of them, it just topples right over. It just doesn't work anymore.
The 3 S's that he used was definitely something that stood out, something that jumped out to me, and something that I can actually go back and study a little bit more on and actually use.
Changing the conversation around gentrification is another focal point for Phillips. He explains that gentrification doesn't have to be a bad thing if you take steps to mitigate displacement, and it beats the alternative of a community in decline.
We want everywhere to be a desirable place to live, and we don't want to feel like making an improvement or an investment in a community is something that people have to be afraid of, and they are right now.
The potential impact of Phillips' presentations were greatly enhanced by the attendance of numerous elected officials.
I really, after listening to you last night, I was like, we probably don't, we have so much, our focus is very much on home ownership, first-time home buyers. We give a lot of subsidies to people to get into home ownership, but we probably haven't done enough from a subsidy standpoint or a stability standpoint on the renting side, and I think that was the most important one that I saw last night.
Policymakers at the city planning department, influential developers, and other community partners were also in on the Phillips-led discussion.
There were a lot of interesting takes on just the gentrification issue and what communities can do, both through regulatory and community building means and incentivizing the inclusion of affordable housing. We have density bonuses and a lot of the things that were mentioned, but I think we could do better.
The framework he presented around the kind of the cascade of building more market rate housing and new market rate housing and what that does, cascade effect down to lower income households. I thought that was really powerful.
Phillips sees Pensacola as well positioned to make progress on affordable housing. He shared the example of Seattle, where they formed an outcome-driven coalition made up of diverse voices and enacted difference-making policies.
A plan that didn't just go on a shelf, that actually got implemented, in part because those committee members all kind of got together. They got their friends and colleagues together and kept pushing for it. And so I think CivicCon can really play that role. It can at the very least get it started, if not be kind of the facilitator and the center of it throughout the process. Pensacola will have to change in some ways, but you know from experience that change can be a positive thing. So I really strongly encourage you to take that same optimistic spirit into this next challenge.
You can help CivicCon make a difference. To learn more, visit studeri.org/CivicCon and pnj.com/CivicCon.